Welcome to Yacht College's GM 442, How to Maintain a Dynasty, which is doubling as our commencement address. I am Jeremiah O'Shan, the self-appointed Dean of Yacht College, and I think we're poised to finish off this 2 weeks of curriculum on a high note. Before we get started, though, I wanted to share a few things. This has been a truly amazing experience for me, and hopefully for anyone else who is engaged on any level with this project. Yacht College was conceived as a way to simply maintain the YachtCon tradition, but it turned into something all its own. Our team of volunteers ended up producing more than 10 hours of programming, and we've already raised well over $10,000 for the Seattle Children's Autism Center, our best ever fundraising total. Nearly 250 different people have registered for more than 500 classes and have racked up more than 2,000 YouTube views and more than 2,000 podcast downloads. I think we also got to know a bunch of Sounders personalities in new ways, learned some new skills, and hopefully had a ton of fun while raising money for an extremely worthy cause. As a reminder, the money we raise goes towards buying big red safety boxes for families with children at the Autism Center. These funds are even more needed now than normal, as the Autism Center has incurred added expenses due to needing to mail these out instead of being able to hand them out in person. I think we'll be ending on a high note too, as my Yacht College colleagues Aaron Campo and Lickett P will be joining me today in navigating our commencement address. Welcome, Aaron and Lickett. You guys ready to eat some spicy wings and ask some spicy questions as we get going here?
Let's do it.
Of course, the main reason we're all here is to gather wisdom from today's guest speaker, Garth Lagerwey. Who will be answering our spicy questions while we eat said spicy wings. Welcome to Yacht College, Garth.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, so I suppose now that you're here, it's a good time to explain what I'm talking about with these spicy wings and spicy questions and all this kind of stuff. During our interview, we'll be pausing every 10 minutes or so to spin Lickett's trusted Wheel o' Spice. Many of you have purchased spots on the wheel that will not only require us to eat spicy wings, but also come with the opportunity to ask Garth a spicy question. The wings Lickett, Aaron, and I will be eating will be at two different levels. One is a habanero-fueled spice that comes in at around 350,000 Scovilles and was made by a friend of mine at Solis Cocina. The other is some version of the Hot One's Last Dab, which apparently clocks in at about 1 million Scovilles, which I understand is enough to burn off my face. We've supplied Garth with the cooler of these two sauces, and we're going to let him kind of choose what he wants to do. But Garth, how are you with spicy? How are you with spice and with spicy questions? Those two things, I guess.
Spicy questions, man. I certainly have had those before. I'll do my best with them, try to have some fun. Spicy wings, expected to be sweating profusely, really from here and like here. There's just like a sort of like a really disgusting sheen about me.
Well, good. I'm glad you're game, and I appreciate you doing this with us and like kind of humoring us really in this endeavor. And if anyone needs, I'll be sipping when I need it on this Craft Casual, which is of course the beer that was made for us by Fast Fashion and Stoop Brewing. Garth has some too. Maybe we'll talk about beer, but before we get started with the really heavy stuff, I wanted to open with a question that I'm sure a lot of our watchers and listeners are interested in. Is there anything you can tell us about Raul Ruidiaz's status? I guess he's been in Peru.
Yes, he has been in Peru. The transition between administrations has led to some interesting situations on the green card front. But long story short, Raul's been in the process of having his status resolved down in Peru, and we certainly don't know what's going to happen yet, but we're cautiously optimistic that it will be resolved positively and that he will be able to return to Seattle this week.
And I guess the added benefit is that even though I'm sure you would have liked to have had him here, but he'll come back and he presumably won't count as an international player anymore.
If we get a successful adjudication, then yes, that's correct. And he would be in green card domestic player status, would not count as a foreigner. And look, he's been in a good setup down there. He's been able to train at the national team center this whole time, and so he's a guy that doesn't get out of shape very much to begin with. So certainly it's an inconvenience, and it's an inconvenience to Raul, and he's been there much longer than he had hoped to or planned to, and That's obviously upsetting and off-putting, and we hope to get it figured out really quickly so he can come back home.
And I guess the opposite side of that is Will Bruin and Freddie Montero have had a chance to work together quite a bit. What have you thought of Freddie so far in this early part of the preseason? Was that someone that you had expected to be bringing back this year?
Freddie has always kept a good relationship with the club. I personally don't know Freddie. That was before I became the general manager. But obviously, tons of connections with Adrian, with Brian, et cetera. And it was, honestly, a kind of a no-brainer in the sense that we were looking at playing 3-5-2, and Freddie had experience in that formation. He obviously had extensive experience with Seattle. He scored a bunch of goals with Vancouver. I mean, it's not like he's past it or anything like that. So, when we heard that he wanted to come, I think figuring it out was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's funny. When it was first announced that he was going to be coming back, I looked at some of his numbers, and I was actually surprised. A lot of the advanced metrics kind of like him, especially with his passing and some of the stuff that he does that's not just scoring goals. Was when you're signing a player you're that familiar with from a playing standpoint, how much digging in do you do onto those more advanced metrics, and is that part of the consideration here?
We always follow our process, but honestly, in this one, Jeremiah, when you're talking about a guy who was willing to come on a team-friendly deal and had scored some goals, and the further context, obviously, is we lost Jordan Morris very likely for the season. So, goal. We talk about advanced metrics, and I'm a big believer in those, and we do deep dives at times. But sometimes you just kind of can look at the lineup and say, all right, well, who's going to score, and how many are they going to score? And you've just lost 10 goals out of the team with Jordan. And hopefully you're able to put a lot of those goals back in with Freddie. And look, it depends who plays. It depends if Will wins the job, how many games are. I mean, all those things are to be determined. But certainly we like the ability of Freddie to give us some goals in whatever role Coach Schmetzer and his staff find appropriate.
So this offseason, I don't know, every offseason, I guess, is its own animal, right? But how would you compare this one to other ones? Does it feel... just the idea that you might be switching to a 3-5-2 in itself feels like it makes it into a different sort of offseason.
Yeah, look, I think we're sure about fewer things. Obviously we couldn't predict Jordan's injury, and when I guess if there's any silver lining to that, we've been through this already. We've been in 2018, we went through this, and he missed the whole season, and we had to adjust how we played, and now at least we kind of know from the get-go what we're going to have to do. But I think it's to be determined. What formation we're going to play in, what system we're going to play, how we're going to deploy our players, and so that's contributed honestly to a somewhat conservative posture with respect to signing players. And throw on top of that then a pandemic. And the fact is, you and I were joking before we went on camera here. Almost everybody we've signed is either a former, in the last 12 months since the pandemic started, has been either a former Sounder or someone with Seattle roots. So, and look, it's really not surprising in the context of we can't scout. So, but I do expect that the market is going to roar back at some point. I mean, obviously, none of us know what's going to happen with the virus, but if we can continue some of the positive trends, we can get folks vaccinated. Then hopefully this summer the world is in a place where we're ready to, people are ready to come out of their houses and hopefully initially join us at 25% capacity at Lumen Field, but hopefully we can push it past that number safely if we can keep bringing cases down, and that's going to take the vigilance of all of us and again everyone getting vaccinated, but hopefully that can come to pass.
So how much has the pandemic affected the way that you approach signings, and how much is it can you decouple that from Chris Henderson leaving, and how do you kind of balance those scales? Was a lot of this preordained, or is this really just you're reacting to what's out on your realities?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a couple things coming together, right? Like losing Chris is a big deal. This is a guy who was maybe the premier talent evaluator in Major League Soccer. So really proud of him for getting the opportunity in Miami and watching him excitedly. And, he's obviously signed a couple guys that used to play for us. So, rooting for those guys as well, to go there and do well. So, it's kind kind of a fun, almost parallel universe to kind of watch. And I have Javi Morales, a player who used to play for me at Salt Lake, is down there on their staff, and Jason Kreis is down there on their staff as well. So a lot of ties to Miami now for me, and it's definitely a club that I'm going to enjoy following and watching. And you kind of need a team in the other conference to root for, so I'll probably be picking them. But yeah, it's been a weird 12 months for everybody, right? I mean, nothing is normal, nothing is settled, and everybody, we kind of do the best we can. We have this new under 22 player initiative. I think we're going to wind up calling those guys youth player slots, is my understanding. So we'll see. But nobody's really, again, we don't know what the market's going to look like, and we're not sure what formation we're going to play. And by the way, whatever we settle on, we might flip back once Jordan comes back next year. So, and when you're talking about, in particular, a YPS signing, it's clearly a signing that's going to be made for more than one season or one window. So there's some real challenges right now that we're working through. And look, we had a pretty good run. Hopefully we can keep it going. But it is going to be a different team this year. There's no two ways about that.
So you brought up a couple things that I wanted to circle back on. One of them is Chris Henderson's replacement. How close are you to being able to announce that, and what was the philosophy going into finding that person?
We had kind of three pillars that we looked at. We certainly wanted somebody who could help us replace what Chris was really, really good at, picking players, finding players from all over the world and using them to build out not just the Sounders, but Defiance. The second we wanted was somebody with some youth development experience or youth development background. Obviously, we feel like we're in the midst of kind of the final push on that front, where we've signed some kids and we haven't gotten them through to the first team yet, and just want somebody who can come in and advise us and help us and kind of try to get us over that last hurdle. And then third, we really wanted somebody who was familiar, with somebody who had some cultural ties, whether to the coaching staff or to Seattle, or just to all of us, somebody that was known. I mean, we feel like we've got a good coaching staff, we've got a good front office, we've got a good player development group. We really didn't want someone to come in and reinvent the wheel. We wanted somebody who we thought could come in and adapt to a lot of what we're doing, and certainly hopefully bring some outside ideas. It's always good to get a fresh set of eyes on your process and your program. And so anyway, trying to combine those things. And Jeremiah, I think we're going to have an announcement this week on that front. So could be a good week. If we get Raul back, Adam Owen's been stuck in visa purgatory as well. I'm hopeful that he's going to get resolved this week. So, we could have Raul, we could have Adam, and completing our performance staff, and we could have a sporting director all within the next 5 days.
Wow. That's pretty exciting stuff there.
Some things going on. Yeah, we're working on it.
So one of the other things that you brought up was this young player initiative, or I don't know what we're young player slot, I guess is what we're going to call it now. How, is that something that you guys were able to hit the ground running on, or did you sort of have to start from scratch in terms of identifying players that would fit into that sort of slot?
Look, I mean, the obvious place to look, I think, based on how we were set up last year and the year before that, was as particularly when we decided to move on from Jovan, was to look at right winger candidates, right? And then Jordan got hurt, and so now so do you want to go out and sign two wingers? Because again, Jordan's going to come back in a year, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you sign one winger, then you're still one short because Jordan's out this year. So again, I think it depends. We got to see how the coaching staff is going to play, and we got to see how players do in the new system and the new roles. And look, on Tuesday we have we'll get a little bit of a exhibition game thing going on, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more information there. But it's a work in progress, and it's, I mean, even the preseason's not normal. We are staying here in Seattle. It's the first time we've ever done that, and we're able to bring some teams in to play us. But with COVID out there, that's a really real thing, and we were not comfortable putting our group at risk going on the road for weeks or months at a time as we've done in the past. So we just got to be patient. We got to get through this, and again, I think still have a lot of confidence in the spine of our team and in the core of our team. And, on paper, when you look at something like whether it's a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2 or wherever you look at it, I mean, we do have the personnel to fit that. And so I do think we can hit the ground running in that respect. But, we'll see. It's going to look different. There's no question about that.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're at our first stop here of the spicy wheel, the wheel of spice, whatever we're going to call it. But so we're going to take a little break here. Lick it. How are we going to – are you able to show that on the screen, or what are you going to do here?
I'm setting it up right now. Hopefully it shows up in a second.
I don't think we're getting your audio.
Hold on.
This is the beauty of live.
Can you hear me?
Okay, Devlin's question is, it's actually for Jeremiah. Taking into account where you were raised, how do you justify supporting the 49ers and the Sounders, but not the Earthquakes?
Yeah, so I feel like at my story, I've gone over it. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Oh, we're going to eat the wings first? All right. So that's – all right. Well, let's see here. I guess that makes it more fun, right? Ooh. This looks scary to me, but
Which one is that, Jeremiah?
this is the spice. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
I did the pineapple, and it's good. It's not too bad spice wise.
Of course, I'm hiccuping. Garth, are you house spice? Oh boy,
So,
this is good.
My wings came in. I got one with 1 star, then one with 2 stars, and one with 3 stars, and then I got the hot sauce that you guys hooked me up with. So I just started. It started easy. I took a 1 star. That wasn't too bad. We'll build up.
Good idea. I did not do that. I went straight for it, and not the best decision that I've made.
You got milk at the ready there?
No. I have beer, which is not helpful. All right.
I'm really hoping that my hot one is not too bad because we don't have any milk in the house at all. So
Yeah, we
I came prepared. I wish I could send it through the screen to you, but I needed a backup plan in case.
All right. So, for what it's worth, Lickit, it sounds like your audio might not be coming through on the broadcast. So, I guess that's something to be aware of. But yeah, I guess I should answer that question. So yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up a 49ers fan, an A's fan, a Sharks fan, a Warriors fan. But I was never really, even though I was going to college, I was actually at San Jose State when the inaugural MLS game was played. And I don't know that I was even aware that the game was being played there. And it was down the street. And suffice it to say, I never saw a Clash game when I was in college. I went to a few Earthquakes games after college, but I certainly was never a fan. One of the few games I went to, though, was the Earthquakes game against the Sounders in 2009, which I don't know that you'll know this, Garth, but it was a 4-0 Earthquakes win. And what I came away impressed by, though, was the traveling support that the Sounders had. They had a couple hundred fans there. And I was kind of blown away by that. As it happened, I was getting ready to move to Seattle anyway. And shortly after moving to Seattle, I kind of fell in love with the Sounders because it was so much fun to watch them play. They were in the middle of a Open Cup run. I was going down to the Georgian Dragon and watching games there. Georgian Dragon, by the way, I don't know if it's there anymore, which is very concerning. It looks like that property has been redeveloped, and I'm very worried about it. But anyway, that's my story. So I never really got into the earthquakes when I was in the Bay Area. So that's the answer. Garth, what was your soccer team growing up? Anyway, who were you rooting for?
The first big pro game I remember going to was with my dad, going to the Chicago Sting when they played for the Soccer Bowl. I think it was either 1980 or 1980. I never remember the year, 80 or 82. I think may have been 84 even, but they won it in one of those years, and we went to, I'm pretty sure, to Wrigley Field to watch the final. And it was Pato Marhetic and Karl-Heinz Granitza and Brett Hall, who later coached me, was one of the American players on that team. So it was one of those things. I went with my dad, and it was like, okay, soccer's my thing now. So it was just super cool, and it was the first championship that I remember. I may have been aware of some others or something, but that's the one that I was present for, and kind of went from there.
Well, this actually takes us into a direction I was already planning on going, but I think it's a good segue. Americans have made a lot of inroads in Europe. It feels like all of a sudden in the last couple years, it went from being like, oh my gosh, are Americans going to be playing in Europe at all, to now it's like they can field a whole national team of young Americans that are playing overseas. What's your perspective on that trend? Is that a good trend for MLS? Is it a good trend for American soccer? Or are those two things in conflict, or are they related?
I think it's all part of building a virtuous cycle. And what I mean by that is that if we're developing better players here, I think we want part of our strategy to be that we're selling players, right? We've seen all over MLS now that teams, and it used to be, hey, well, if you're developing players, you can't win, right? But then the Philadelphia Union won the Supporters Shield, so it's tough to make that argument. And then they sold a couple of guys for a lot of money, right? And I think it's kind of simultaneous to that, right? And RSL's been doing this, and Dallas has been doing it, and Philadelphia, New York Red Bull. We've had a bunch of teams do it and do it pretty well now. And if you even look at LAFC and how they built their team, they have a young team that's kind of full of assets, and that was one of the focuses that they made in their build. And Atlanta's done some things right with Almiron, with Barco, some other stuff. So it's been fun to watch the league evolve that way. And I think simultaneously, Greg Berhalter started playing young players with the national team, so all of which to say, I think we're taking a step forward as a country, and I think the rest of the world is starting to figure out that there are good players here, and we're giving more opportunities to young players. And again, hopefully then if we're able to generate revenue off of that eventually, and these guys competitively go over there and they get better and better, then it's good for everybody.
See you.
All right.
That said, where were we?
We should probably just eat another wing, I think.
Why don't we eat another wing? Sure. I'll have another wing.
You can't go wrong eating another wing.
I'm going to try
Garth, I got to tell you, I was very impressed. I asked you what kind of wings you wanted, and you were very specific. You wanted flats. What do you like about flats versus drumsticks?
I was literally just thinking of how I can make less of a fool of myself, and I feel like the drumstick you have to gnaw sometimes, to separate it. Whereas, if you got a flat, at least you go one pull, and for better or worse, you get what you get, and there's kind of no second guessing yourself.
See, I actually was thinking the other way, which was a drumstick. You just kind of bite into it, and with flats, you got to have a system. But
it's conceivable I've eaten more wings in my life than you have, Jeremiah.
You probably have. You're probably a little bit. I have not had a lot of experience. Certainly, I don't have my own system yet for wing eating. But
I like what you did there, winging it.
Yeah, there you go. So Garth, we see American players making inroads into Europe. How close do you think we are of talent evaluators and people like yourself getting into the moving over to Europe and seeing more coaches and that side of things?
Well, we've seen a couple, right? I mean, it took forever for somebody to break through, and Bob Bradley made it, for a couple of weeks with Swansea, and then, you see now Jesse Marsh obviously going over and doing well. Now that's part of the Red Bull umbrella, but I think you're going to see more and more of those kind of multinational setups, and just as MLS players get more exposed to the world, I have no doubt you'll see more and more coaches and executives get exposed and go over. And it's all about the respect level that MLS has earned abroad. And, again, as we move players, I think, again, I use the phrase virtuous cycle. I think, it's going to increase the respect level for MLS. And I think you'll see more and more of those transactions both on and off the field.
And so do you get the sense that American players are actually getting better, or is it just that the way they're being evaluated, like European talent evaluators are just trusting the American player more, and it just sort of like is part of that virtuous cycle?
Look, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, in the sense of, we're spending millions of dollars a year on player development, so I hope we're getting better at it. If we're not, then we've been pretty negligent. So yes, I do think the level is improving. Certainly we have a lot more tools than we ever have. And, and with MLS Next, where, MLS as a league has even recognized that we're going to need to be active in this space and drive the space forward and continue to do that. And, as we move from, and, we're at 27 teams this year, sounds like we're going to move eventually to 32. That's going to cover virtually the whole country. I think you'll have fewer and fewer guys that slip through the cracks in a 32 team league. And that's exciting. And I think we'll keep doing that. And likewise, when the national team coach takes a shot on 5 or 6 young guys and a whole bunch of them pop at the same time, then, you're going to get a whole, you're going to get what you've seen, which is players getting opportunities and a real increase in interest in American players, because American players are still cheaper than a lot of their counterparts are, because it is a market that doesn't have the long track record of success in terms of players moving to Europe. And, now as you see guys go over there and do well, every one of these players that gets sold, all of us in MLS are rooting for. It doesn't matter if they came from Dallas or Philly or New York. If they do well, they're going to prop up the market for everybody else.
And so what do you see as the Sounders what do you see the Sounders role in that space? Like, is it imperative that the Sounders start selling players to Europe? Is that a secondary? Is it always about, winning and development on that kind of level takes a second step? Or I don't know, how do you balance those differing needs?
Yeah, the one thing I feel pretty strongly about, Jeremiah, is I really don't think it's an either or. I think that's the wrong question. It's because if it's are you committed to winning? Well, we've been to 4 of the last 5 MLS Cup finals. It seems objectively certifiable that we're trying to win. So that's that I think goes without saying. And we have once we get fans back in the building, I hope 40,000 people are still showing up every day and every game. And we're always going to owe it to those folks to do our best to win every game, and we're going to do that. But I don't think it is mutually exclusive that you can also develop players. Again, Philadelphia Union won the Supporters Shield, so I think that argument is a little. I thought it was antiquated before. I think it's particularly so now. There are big clubs all over the world that play 1 or 2 young guys at a time, and I think that's really the key to it. Right? Is no one here is seeking to reinvent the wheel and say all of a sudden we're going to play. We're going to go to Columbus on the road and start 5 teenagers. That's not a recipe for success. But if you can introduce one young player into the team in most games, whether that's in a reserve role or a starting role, and we have a number of young players that are knocking on the door. And I think that's the way to approach it successfully. To have young players playing next to experienced veteran players, and then maintaining the standard, and then really what you're doing by doing that is you're investing in yourself. As we've seen, we got to a salary cap situation. As when you go on these long championship runs, everybody in every sport, at least in North America, with a salary cap, you hit the wall, and you have to then offload a bunch of veterans. And so we've known that this day was coming, and we put all our chips in the last 2 years to try and win. And now we are at the stage where that hopefully some of that investment in the young players starts paying off. and we're able to, as I said, to break through and get them on the field and then increase over time the upside of the whole group. Because that's the great thing about young players is they may be a little bit up and down, but again, if you put them in the right structure and the right system, and you coach them up, then they're going to get better. They're really only going to get better. So your starting point is just that. It's a starting point, and that means your team's going to improve over the course of the season.
And so I don't know, Jordan's situation was maybe a little different in that he was already an established player, but was that decision, did like the desire to be part of that system, did that play into letting Jordan go and do the loan? Obviously it didn't quite work out how everyone wanted, but if you can go back to the decision-making process of doing that, or was Jordan just completely a separate category because of everything that he had done in the organization and whatnot?
Yeah, I wouldn't personally tie those two together. I mean, obviously, look, the only person who can truly answer that is Jordan himself, right? But at the end of the day, we had, this is all public, right? I mean, when Jordan left Stanford, he had a bunch of opportunities. He chose to sign for the Sounders. I think that was a great decision. Hopefully, Jordan thinks it was a great decision. I think he does. But with that came we're not going to be absolutists here. If you sign with the Sounders, we're not saying this is forever and we'll never let you go. Like that was part of it. It was, if you're going to be willing to give us a chance and pass on the Bundesliga and sign with us, then, if you come to us one day and say, hey, I want to give it a shot, then we're going to help. And it was as simple as that. And I know, I don't know. I sense that some people think that's cheesy or naive or, that's not really what happened. But it honestly wasn't that complicated. It was, when Jordan came to us and said there was something he really wanted to do, we said, okay, this is what we had talked about. And, we got to live up to our end of the bargain now too, and try to facilitate in the best way possible for the club. And, look, he gets hurt in a non-contact injury. So, it wasn't because of fixture congestion or cumulative fatigue or, some of these things that can happen on loans. He got hurt in space, and it's the same way he got hurt 3 years prior when he was playing in the Champions League. So stuff happens, and it's a bummer, and it's a bummer for Jordan. So, but he's a super resilient kid, and we're really proud of him and really happy he's still a Sounder, and hopefully at the end of all this, he'll be a Sounder for a long time.
So does the calculus change at all when it's a younger player who maybe hasn't had a chance really to break in? I mean, is there a pressure to sell a player early if you're getting those offers at the very beginning of their career, or is that something where you want to, like, is there some imperative for the first team to get kind of some playing out of these guys before you are willing to sell them?
Some of the metrics that we use, when the kids play, their market value tends to go up pretty dramatically. When the kids play in World Cups, we were tied with NYCFC having the most kids in the last under-17 World Cup team. And look, that doesn't, because you played the World Cup doesn't mean you're going to make it either, right? So, if they come in the first team and they do well, there's no question that playing them meaningful minutes will drive their value. As to what you do with that player, I think it's always a case by case, and it's complex. Is this a guy that you see is going to be your starter for the next 3, 4, 5 years? Is it a player that do you really believe in him or not? Some of what you're selling when you're selling 17, 18, 19-year-old players, so you can't sell them before they turn 18, but is potential. So we know the player better than anybody. And, there is a price at which it probably makes sense, and there's probably a price at which it doesn't. And, that's where you have to examine. And I think the big thing for us, Jeremiah, is we got to be in the game. We have to come up now with some solutions. We can't just roll out, and this is one where we've made the playoffs 12 years in a row, and, had nothing but success. And it can be really challenging to evolve because, we've been to 4 of the last 5 cup finals. And, so to agree internally that, hey, this has worked really, really well, but we're going to try this new thing. And again, it's not an either or. It's not a black and white. It's not a binary choice. But I do think that the way the world's moving with these youth player slots coming in, I do think that it's a space that we have to be in. And in that sense, we have to evolve as a club. And again, it's not a radical sea change. It's let's win every game, and let's try to do it while we're developing some players too.
All right, so we're gonna do another break and ask a question from the wheel. This one apparently is from Matt Clevenger, and I'm going to go and let Aaron ask the question.
This is actually a pretty spicy question. What job or opportunity would make you leave the Sounders? It doesn't have to be limited to the world of MLS or soccer.
Are we eating the wing first?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We got to do the wing first, right?
The wing first?
Oh.
All right.
I'm doing the ghost pepper one this time, so.
Oh, good. All right. I'll do that one, too, because I'm a sucker. All right, so now my palate is apparently a little more prepared for this. That is still quite spicy. Wow.
That's not good, boss.
No.
Oh, no. Very bad idea. Oh, well.
Well,
So
you guys
are
are struggling to wing through. Do you want me to...
Hot Ones, which is this YouTube show that we stole this idea from.
What's up?
I'm asking Garth if he's ever watched Hot Ones.
I have not seen Hot Ones.
All right, well, after this, you'll maybe get some new appreciation for it. But I do. It's an interview. I'll give you the 10,000. The elevator pitch is an interview show where they eat rapidly escalating levels of spice wings, and at the end of it, they're eating the stuff that I am apparently eating with almost every wing, because I am apparently a glutton for punishment, and I think that's what the people want.
It's definitely what people were.
It's definitely what the people want.
You guys hear me again?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So, Garth, we left off. We were talking about development. Where do you think where would you grade? Huh? Oh, you haven't done the question. Thank you. Ooh, wait, you did the question. He hasn't answered it yet.
Yeah, he hasn't answered it.
Oh, that's right. We're on a fire today.
I think those spices are getting to your brain, Jeremiah.
They are.
I have tried. I did one of my 3 stars. So far so good on my end. No, I haven't put any ghost anything on anything, let alone. I'll try this habanero stuff next. Look, my job. The next kind of invocation point for the job is you guys all vote on me, right? So we'll see what happens with that in 2022, and we can go from there. I mean, it's obviously a really fun job, and getting to work for the Sounders is a privilege, and to do so as the general manager is a particular privilege as a steward of the club, and to be part of an organization that's had so much success before me, and hopefully during my tenure, and no doubt will continue to be successful long after I'm gone. So, it's kind of hard to answer that question or imagine it. There aren't, the thing that would be tempting, and Jeremiah, you and I have talked about this before, is, if there's a CEO role at some point where you were running an entire club, and again, there are folks that have done that in the last couple of years that have said, hey, that's a really bad idea. It's a structure that as a league, the league is moving away from. But it's always about, can I keep learning? Can I keep getting better? Can I keep, meeting new folks and doing new things and being challenged and, just enjoying work the same as anybody else in any other job.
Would you say that Seattle has met your expectations in terms of when you made this move in 2015? Sounders were coming off a supporter shield. You were coming into an established team that was still looking to get to the next level. I don't know how much you knew about the exact situation, but would you say it's like, how would you assess all that in over 6 years?
I guess I feel like it's gone pretty well, right? I mean, results on the field would speak to that. We've talked tonight a little bit about, can we become kind of the complete club, where we're able to continue to compete for titles and develop players. And, that's a fun challenge. It's just can you balance those things out? And, I'm interested in the strategy of it, because in order to develop players, it's literally a years-long process that you invest in staff and players and scouting and infrastructure and data analysis. And, we're constantly trying to get smarter and learn from our missteps and hopefully push forward our successes. So, that's been part of it. And it's been, for the most part, it's been fun. Ups and downs as there are with any job. But it's again, it's been a privilege to, the fans are still the thing that make this different. There's only one other city in America that you can go to where the club is relevant, even on a somewhat comparable scale. If you think about Atlanta, even massive clubs like LAFC and LA Galaxy and the other kind of big brands around MLS, I don't know that they're as relevant in their local marketplace as the Sounders are in Seattle. And that's fun and that's neat. And that's, again, that presents some challenges, but it's something that I know we value. And for our family, this is culturally the kind of place that we like living. So I think it's been a relatively good fit.
Well, that's good to hear. I know I've enjoyed the time that you've had here, and I'm hoping it keeps going. So I'm glad to hear that. But along those lines, we've been talking. We were talking before the show started. You asked about the Purple Haze kit or the Jimi Hendrix kit and what we thought of it, and it started an interesting conversation in the Sounder at Heart community where we were wondering if this might actually herald kind of a mindset change of the organization where, they've always aimed to be a global brand, but I wonder if there's maybe this, and especially over the last year, as there's been even more Seattle influence into the, both the technical and the player side. Is there a sense that you can lean into the community even more than you have in the past?
It's interesting that you phrased it that way, Jeremiah. And, what you and I were talking about before we went live here, I mean, I think everybody we signed, or almost everybody we signed, Spencer Ritchie, Freddie Montero, Kellen Rowe, going back last year, Brad Smith, Roman Torres. I mean, the pandemic has, really pushed us in this direction, and we've embraced it and leaned into it. And but from an outsider, I still consider myself, I'm not born in Seattle, and there's still I don't know if you feel it at all, Jeremiah, but there's still a level of you're here, but you weren't here back when kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
And look, I mean that's at our organization at its core is very Seattle centric. We have the senior leadership team, at least 3 or 4 people that were literally born and raised and have lived most of their adult lives in Seattle. So, I've always felt that we were very Seattle focused and Seattle centric, very community based. And certainly when we went to when the ownership group evolved from just Joe Roth to the families, again, almost all those families are Seattle families. Now, not exclusively, but the great majority of them are. And, Peter Tomazawa came aboard and is working with us on a day-to-day basis, and that's been a lot of fun. And but he's an adoptive Seattleite now himself. So I think yes, as the answer to your question, I think we are very much interested in and focused on Seattle, our community, our fan base, on social justice here in this community, and I think all of these elements contributed to focus us in that direction.
So I think one of the funny things about that is when you first came here in 2015, there was this, I think, assumption that you were going to eventually get around to sort of cleaning house and rebuilding the organization with your people. Essentially, it hasn't really worked out that way. I mean, you ended up signing Brian as your first head coach hire. You now have just hired Wade Weber as your Defiance coach, who I realize you know him very well, but he's a Seattle guy. And you look up and down the organization, and it actually seems like you've leaned into the the advantages that were already here. Is that something that you came into thinking might be the case, or did your mind get kind of changed once you got here?
Look, I like to think I came at it with humility, not thinking that I knew everything, not thinking that I had to do it my way, and there was no other way to accomplish it. Certainly wanted to learn from what had worked here, and again, an organization that had a ton of success. We've joked in the past, I'm the dummy, right? I'm the one who's like, after the winning the Open Cup and the Supporter Shield, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come in, I'll make them better. It was a pretty big risk, and fortunately it's worked out, and we had a couple stars in the jersey now, and that's forever, and that feels pretty cool. And in terms of changing things, this goes back into the story of the offseason that was not dominated, but was a common thread was were we going to retain Brian Schmetzer and stuff like that. And again, like internally, that was just a total non-story at all time. I think what folks don't realize is Adrian and Brian have been together for 20 years, and so like that's not changing, right? Like they've had only success. They've made the playoffs like literally all but like 1 year in 20. Like it's just not a space where a GM is going to have a lot of influence. And so did I know that? Definitely didn't know that coming in. I mean, Brian wasn't a coach then, so I didn't know Brian, so that's definitely been new, and that's changed. But I've done my best to adapt to that, and certainly I've enjoyed working with Brian, and we've had some success together, and hopefully that'll continue.
All right. Well, it sounds like another good time to do a wheel spin. Lick it. Why don't you spin that wheel again?
I just did. I don't know who this person is, and you probably don't know who this is, but it's Marnie O'Shan.
Oh no. I don't.
Garth, you've been generous with your time every year as part of YachtCon. Clearly, the audience appreciates it, and you must enjoy connecting with Sounders fans this way. How much does it pain you that it involves more interaction with Jeremiah?
I will tell Jeremiah. Should I assume that Marty is your wife? Is that accurate? Or
She's
your daughter?
not my wife. She's my sister, though.
The sister. Okay. All right. Well, Marty, thank you very much for the question. I'd love to do it justice. I am married to a woman who keeps me humble most of the time, so it's a familiar question. I will mock both myself and Jeremiah for a second and say that Jeremiah is the only person that came to my office wanting to conduct an interview, and we were both so full of ourselves that we wound up talking politics for over an hour and never wound up going on the record with the topic that we had intended to cover on the day. So, certainly Jeremiah is somebody that look, we've gotten to spend a lot of time together at this point, right, Jeremiah? I mean, I think we've kind of grown up with the Sounders almost a little bit. You definitely knew a lot more than I did when I came, but it's been fun, man. It's been fun, and to have this community here at Sounder at Heart it's part of what makes the Sounders really special, and it is fun to interact with everybody, and it's again, if you can't enjoy the kind of quirkiness of playing D&D and watching Wade Weber playing a guitar and strumming along, you're not enjoying life. You're not doing it the right way. So a hat tip to everybody, and the cause here to raise some money for Seattle Children's and for autism is near and dear to my heart. It personally impacts our family, and so again, really, really happy and feel lucky to be included on something like this. So thank you.
Well, and I guess I didn't mention it earlier on, but the whole wing concept came out of the idea that we encouraged people to donate to our charity, and in exchange we would eat hot wings and ask the questions that they wanted to ask. So this is, in fact, we're not just doing it for the silliness of it. There was a fundraising element of it, and in case you missed it, we're at something around $12,000 right now, raised entirely. And I don't know, we've set a soft goal. Hey, let's get to 15. Why not? And we'll see if we get there. But I really do appreciate.
I think Garth still owes us a wing too, by the way.
Oh yeah,
all right.
A wing.
Let me keep working.
I gotta tell you though, this turmeric sauce that we have there's a turmeric sauce that's habanero. I gotta tell you, it seems downright mild after you've been doing the hot ones, last dab sauce, which I've been doing a couple times, and it's like a nice refreshing break.
It's out of this world. That's one of the better hot sauces I've had in a long time.
Yeah,
it's a turmeric and carrot sauce that randomly a friend of mine from high school started doing hot sauces, and his name's Anthony Solis, and it's Solis Cocina is the name that he's given the sauce, and he started bottling it. And anyway, plug. Yep. And that's the other one, the pineapple one.
Yeah, that one's also very good, but the turmeric is it's very unique.
So how are you handling these, Garth?
I just tried my first habanero turmeric.
And it looks like you're handling them fine.
So far, so good. I can feel the sweat beginning.
There you
the
go.
Internal system that immediately overheats, and again, it's outwardly not pretty. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, nothing on this show is really pretty. I think we can say that.
But no, that's honestly, it tastes good, Jeremiah. Like, honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised. I was apprehensive, if I'm honest.
No, hey, I don't blame you for being apprehensive. I getting back to the idea of this kind of Seattle community aspect of the signing. I mean, how aware are you that almost every year I think every year but one since you've been here, you've brought back a former player? What do you think that says about the organization, that not only that you're willing to bring back players, but that players apparently want to keep coming back?
Look, we try to, the little cliche that we impute here is we try to treat people better on the way out than on the way in. And obviously on the way in, we try to make them feel very welcome and welcome families and welcome people to new culture, et cetera. So, we try to do the same. We're not a team that takes hard lines or gets upset with people if contracts don't work out, or we try to treat everybody well. I mean, hopefully while they're with us, we try to treat them well as well. So it's something that I've always found worked out pretty well. It's a value I shared with the folks that were here already, with Adrian, with Brian. And it's not real difficult, and oftentimes when you have a player like, say, a Kellen Rowe, like, we weren't sure, honestly. And initially when we just ran data on Kellen, and he hasn't played as much in the last couple of years as he would have liked, I'm sure. And we got on the phone with Kellen, and he did a call with Chris, was still with us at the time, and he talked to me, Chris, and Brian, and we all hung up the phone. We're like, yeah, we got to sign him. So this is a. It's like, again, like, I think, don't get me wrong, there's some stuff that we do that is highly technical and very complicated, and we dive in. But sometimes if you have people that really want to play for you and, are willing to do so on reasonable financial terms, if you can get a couple of those, those are always wins. Those are always good things for the club. And, I suppose you could get to a point where maybe there are too many of them, but I don't. We're not there yet, and we're really lucky to have a guy like Kellen who really wants to be here. And I think players like him and like Freddie Montero, those guys are going to give their heart and soul for the club. I wouldn't be shocked if and again, I've never had this conversation with DeAndre, but I would think at some point someday DeAndre maybe makes his way back here as well, just based on the relationship again that he has with the club. And that one's more complicated than the others because. There's allocation considerations and some other things that would have to come into play. You have some things that would have to line up, but I think a lot of guys have had a lot of success, and again, it's the fans. I mean, I'd love to tell you it's because we have the best looking general manager in the league. I think that's probably objectively. You guys politely turned my camera off early in this interview, so I know how you feel about that. But beyond that. It's the fans, man. Like, hey, do you want to come play in front of 40,000? Like, who's going to say no to that? Like, and the team, again, that same fan base drives buckets of revenue into our coffers, and that allows us to continue to reinvest in the team and be successful. So it's a really good relationship that way.
Do you have to be, like you mentioned this, but do you have to be aware of it, not letting it become a sentimental decision that you, like, is there ever a point where you have to, like, wait a minute, are we signing Freddie because he wants to be here, or are we signing him because we think he can score goals? I mean, is that, like, how serious of those conversations get?
Yeah, look, if I'm sentimental, I lose my job, right? It's pretty straightforward. You guys will vote on me and be like, hey, that was really nice that you brought Freddie back, but he didn't play well, and neither did Brad, and neither did Kellen, and therefore, you don't work here anymore. So it's pretty black and white that way. And that's my job in general, right? That it's, a general manager is not a position you should adopt if you want to be loved. It is a difficult position in the sense of you have to say no, and you have to say no often. And you have to make cold-hearted evaluations and objective evaluations. Hopefully they're not, in fact, cold-hearted, because you're not doing it whether because you like someone or you don't like someone. It's based on evidence. That's what we try to make our decisions on. And, what you're doing too is, as a GM, that's separate. Like, I maintain virtually anybody can be a scout. Now, being a good scout is a completely different thing, but being a scout in the sense that we can all watch a basketball game or a football game or a baseball game and be like, hey, that's the best player. And you'll find almost always that best player is often the highest paid. The skill of a GM comes in trying to find value at every single price point at every single position. And the benefit of us having good relationships with players and ex-players is a lot of times these guys will come back and they'll say, hey, I am willing to do this with my contract structure. I am willing to forgo that bonus, or I am willing to fit under the salary cap in this way or that way. And when you have that flexibility, that allows you to continually pick players at the right value. And if you do that enough times, then the collective should benefit from that. And hopefully you're fielding good teams.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, then we're going to do another wing. But so we've seen the Sounders sustain a level of success that's literally unprecedented in MLS, but just as impressive when looked at through the prism of North American soccer. What we haven't seen, though, is the Sounders have the type of regular season that, I don't know, like a Toronto FC or an LAFC or even an Atlanta has had in recent years. And I'm just wondering, is there something about the way the Sounders are structured that promotes long-term success, maybe at the cost of not reaching the extreme heights of, a 75-point season or whatever it might be? Or is that just kind of a luck of the kind of the way it's worked out?
I definitely think some of the strategic choices we make play in. We look at DP signings, and the guys you pay for are match winners, right? You want to give the money to the guys that make the difference in the big games, and Ladero and Rui Diaz in particular, I think, have done a pretty good job of that. We signed them when they were available. And in both those cases, that was in the summer. And we were willing to wait to get that right. And so, those are, that's 16 and 18 right there. That's 2 seasons where we felt like we could make more impact. The other thing that gets reported less is there are not with DPs, but with DPs as well. There are significant cap benefits to signing players in the summer. So again, if you're looking at a pot of money and you can buy a player now and then buy another player in the summer by waiting on that DP or waiting on that TAM guy, then you literally have more good players on your team. So we found that to be an effective strategy for us year over year over year. Look, we've if we were consistently mediocre and not making deep runs in the playoffs, then I think you could go back and, all right, are we putting enough weight and attention in the beginning of the season, into the regular season, et cetera? Those would be fair questions. But, we've never finished lower than 4th. We finished 2nd in the West last year. I think there's an argument we could have or maybe even should have won the regular season in the West. And, that didn't work out for a lot of reasons. And so a bunch of things we can't control, like the crazy international window that with the way it went down in October, November, and the knock-on effects of that. But it's, the other thing is that, this is no doubt going to get me in trouble with some elements of the Sounder at Heart fan base, but, a supporter shield is it's always going to be a good measure of who the best team is, right? But if you look at the traditional supporter shields, those are games being played home and away in a regular cadence where you play everybody in the league. And, last year we didn't play anybody in the East. Like, we just played the West. And this year, if you look at our schedule, we haven't moved to a division format, but this is a division schedule. That's what this is. We're playing everybody in the West Coast 3 times. We're playing the rest of the West twice, and we only play in 2 East Coast games. So, the idea that the supporter shield, even to a purist, that would be somehow embody the best team automatically over 34 games. I do intellectually struggle with that when you're only playing one half of the league, really, and you're playing them an unbalanced number of times. And even within the 3 within the division, if we get LAFC and the Galaxy and Portland twice away, that's a tougher schedule than if we get them all at home. So there's just a lot of things like that where, look, you're always going to try to do the best you can in the regular season because you want to get a high seed, right? If you get a high seed, you get playoff games at home. You get playoff games at home. You get lots of revenue. You get to invest that in the team. Again, virtuous cycle, right? So it's probably more information than you wanted, but hopefully that answered the question.
There's never too much information. All right, let's do that final wheel spin.
Alrighty. Kristen Sario.
Oh, are we hearing Aaron?
Aaron, you might be on mute.
I was. What's the hottest thing you've ever eaten? Is the question.
Oh, well, I'll start and then I'll let. Well, I guess I should eat the wing first, right? That's how we're doing it. We're eating the wing, and then we're gonna. I know this answer actually.
Doing the dab.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. That gets you on the tongue. With the rope. Yeah. All right. So, Garth, I'll answer first, and I'll let you give some thought to this. The hottest thing I ever ate, I was in L.A. shortly before the pandemic started, actually. I went to a taqueria. They had something on the menu called a chili taco that was just grilled chilies with some cheese on it. And I thought, sure, why not? And I took one bite of that, and I realized that was not fit for human consumption. And I was hiccuping and dying for probably the next 10 or 15 minutes, which is starting to hit me now of this one. But, yeah, that was probably the hottest thing I ever ate.
I do not have a good answer here. I do not have a memory of one thing in particular. Just that I sweat out of the sides of my face, like from below my eyeballs and like below my ears, and it rolls down my face. And so I think at a young age, I was like, yeah, my people aren't adapted for this stuff. This is not going to be an area of strength.
Well, yeah.
I was making chili once and thought I was using smoked paprika, but I was actually using cayenne. And so it wasn't intended to be that spicy, but it was definitely the spiciest thing I've ever eaten.
I did something.
It was probably like 4 or 5 tablespoons of cayenne in a pot of chili, which is a lot of cayenne. So,
yeah, I did something similar to that once. The first time I ever made chile verde, I thought I got 2 different kinds of peppers mixed up. I think I was supposed to be using serranos, and I used like these little green peppers, and it made like nuclear level spice to this that was almost inedible. But anyway, we'll finish this up on a high note, I promise. Garth, how you doing?
Doing all right, man. Hanging in there. I got 1 bucket of wings down, and I got 2 more, and we're dabbling. And I haven't put the habanero together yet with the 3-star wings. That's the mountain I have left to climb. But I've mixed everything else so far. So
all right,
braver or stupider, one of the 2.
Well, are you able to hang out for a little bit longer? I know we're pushing past the time we said we were going to keep you till.
Well, we're all good. So far, none of my children have come into the office, so I'm just assuming that they're asleep. That's the way it usually works in your house, right, Jeremiah?
Oh, that is 100% how it works in my house.
Yeah.
We're usually watching.
My wife hasn't even texted.
Yeah, you're golden then. Yeah, the thing that happens at our house is, so my wife, I don't know if this is too much information probably, but my wife is a big fan of the TV show Supernatural, which has been an amazing experience for the pandemic because it's 15 seasons of like 23 episodes each season. And we're getting close to getting to the end here, but it's not the most appropriate thing for your kids to walk in on. It's like it's a pretty scary show for a kid to witness.
Mm-hmm.
We've had that happen a few times, but anyway,
we got through Star Wars in our house in the pandemic. That was a matter of some debate, but we got there's some lightsaber injuries that are maybe a little much, but we pushed through it.
That's what happens when you have boys, right?
I have 3 boys. Yeah. We're toughing them up, I guess, or scarring them forever. One of the two.
So does that mean you made it through all 11 episodes of Star Wars?
We did. Yeah. I'm not saying we did it in a day, Jeremiah. But,
right.
Yeah.
Hey, how about, did you guys get to Mandalorian too?
We have not yet secured the resources to subscribe to Disney Plus. So it's on. It's one of it's one of my boys have asked for it for their birthday. So it's one of those where probably shouldn't. Hopefully he doesn't watch this, but we're thinking about maybe going that direction. And he has it in his head that he's gonna watch. He's gonna watch The Mandalorian. Like that is for his birthday. That's gonna be his thing. So I'm actually pretty pumped about it. Like we're gonna drop it on him then and hopefully be a lot of fun.
I like that the Lagerway household is withholding Disney Plus from their children because they don't have the resources for it. I like it. I like that story that you've told your kids.
We're on screens a lot as part of remote school, so
yes,
I think those parents can attest that more screens is maybe not the best approach right now.
The Disney allocation money is hard to come by.
Right.
It is. No, look, I mean, I'm a huge Marvel nerd as well, as Jeremiah knows. So I'm ready. We just gotta ration it out in the right way. But I can't wait to watch WandaVision and whatever else is coming that way. And I still haven't seen Hamilton. I mean, these are gaps in my pop culture knowledge here that in between watching Brazilian players and Ecuadorian players and Argentinian players and whoever our new sporting director likes. That's going to be an interesting process. We're going to have to match their taste with ours, and there'll be some working together on that, I'm sure.
Well, this feels like a good transition into this area of inquiry. During the D&D episode, which apparently you may have watched, it sounds like.
I did. I saw it. I wouldn't have missed that for the world. Hat tip to Dave Clark.
Did you stick around for all 3 hours of it?
I did. I broke it up, Jeremiah. I got it. I couldn't just go coast to coast on that. I was able to kind of watch it here and there and have it on the background. And but I did get to see them beat the Green Dragon and I'm again as a father, I'm really impressed with Dave Clark because the amount of work that goes into laying that out and like running that. It's like I've thought about could I do this with my kids, and it's really time intensive to do what Dave does, and it's really impressive how he set it up.
Well, I think you just made Dave's year, so congratulations on that. But the reason I brought it up was so we learned that your character apparently was someone named, I hope I'm getting this right, Rodius Pigpopper. Is that accurate?
Rodius was the first name, and that was a Dutch lawmaker. He's one of the first experts in kind of the progenitor of naval law. And so, again, being a nerd, I thought I might go. This is one because Wade and I played together when we were teammates on the then Dallas Burn, now FC Dallas, and so I figured I wanted to go to law school at some point, and so I was very interested in those kind of figures. And my heritage is Dutch. My ancestors came over 100 years ago through Ellis Island from Holland, and so Grodius was the name, and then the last part was just silliness. Was just find something idiotic, silly, whatever went through my 25-year-old brain at that point. Something that could be laughed about for years afterwards.
Well, I appreciate you coming up with that name because it made for a good discussion. But what do you think your experience as a D&D player says about you, or what about that character spoke to like the way you are a GM and the way that you kind of executed your career from then forward?
You know, I don't know. I would love for there to be some insight here, Jeremiah, but I suspect it was just I was in my 20s. I was a goalkeeper. I was a meathead. I had some funky haircuts. I was very into expressing myself, and if I got to carry a big sword and be a big strong guy in the game and chop some people's heads off, then that felt pretty fun at that point. And I wasn't married, and I was one of these guys that always said, I'm never going to get married. That's for the weak. Life, it's funny. Life always catches up with you, right? Things change and your perspective changes and you evolve. I love that word. I spent a bunch of time watching the Lincoln special on CNN, the 6-part installment. And one of the words was to watch Lincoln's evolution on the issues of the day. So, and the issues of our day. So I think it's a really important quality as a person. If you can evolve along the way, then hopefully that's means that you're remaining curious about the world around you and you're trying to learn from it and trying to get better. And I like to think that I did some of that.
Well, but you say you were a meathead and you say all these kind of self-deprecating things, but D&D, you pick a kind of a clever name in Rhodius, and you're playing D&D, which is not exactly a meathead game to get into. I mean, there must be something about your interest in a turn-based strategy game that translated into, maybe not at the time you knew it, but it seems like it at least laid some foundation for moving on into the player personnel field.
I mean, look, in the sense of, you're adventuring with a group of people, right? And Wade referenced this as well, but one of the other party members is now a judge, a federal judge, and was a better lawyer than I was. And the other guy's a government contractor who's smarter than both of us. So it was definitely some intellectual firepower. And at that time, at least, I didn't find Dallas, Texas to be the most intellectually stimulating place, at least not within a pro soccer player locker room. I remember, and look, it's all changed now, right? I mean, most of the kids nowadays don't go to college at all, but back then you still had teams that had college guys, and we had, I don't know, between 4, 5, 6, something like that, guys that had gone to college on the team in Dallas. And I was a backup goalkeeper, so no matter how delusional I got, I probably wasn't so delusional that I thought I was going to make a living at this. I mean, the most money I ever made as a pro goalkeeper was $40,000, and all in 1 year. That's a lot. So we called ourselves professional, and it was obvious you had to have a backup plan. And again, I figured I wanted to go into law, and look, I got cut 4 times in 5 years. So it wasn't exactly a secure way to make a living. It was a lot of fun. Wouldn't change it for the world. But you needed to have something else. And so I think that, again, if I were to peel it back at all, I was a history and public policy major in college. I was always interested in the world and, studied abroad in Florence, studied abroad in Freiburg, Germany, was interested in, the kind of multicultural aspects of life. And, so probably I'll wrap that into, I better have, I would love to hang out with these smart people and do this strategy-based thing. And that is one thing that I think is different. As opposed to playing a video game where you're holding a controller and shooting something in front of you, D&D does allow you to have, maybe it's just over a couple of hours, but to have a strategy and to go on a campaign and to have a broader big picture. And certainly that very much informs how I think. I think you asked me about signing, we talked about this a little bit in terms of signing people in the summer, but there's always a strategy, man. You have to get the strategy, you have to set that, and then you have to work back from there. And as long as you're true to that framework, no matter how good your process, you're always going to screw up decisions along the way. But if you get most of them right and you follow the overall strategy, you got a decent chance of being successful, or at least that's what's worked for me. And I'm sure I've worked with people who think I'm tough to work with because I'm concerned about things that are going to happen 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and I always kind of keep that in mind. And I'm not reactionary, and I don't particularly care what other people think or say, and I don't swing to pressure a whole lot. So I suppose I could be obstinate or stubborn. But again, it's the idea of setting a strategy and following it, and then sticking to it.
Well, I don't know. Do we have another? I was going to say that's a good place to end, but I also feel like if we can do one more wing, do we want to do that? Do we have another spin in us?
Sure.
I'll go all in here. I'll go with your special hot sauce and my 3 stars, and
There we go. That's what we were here for. See, that's what I was just playing it into. What do we got?
Spinning. It's taking its time.
It knows we're into it.
Tim Ham.
All right. So Jeff Bezos calls you and offers you a Brewster's Million deal with $1 billion, but you must spend it all in 30 days and retain no assets. What do you do?
Wow. Ain't no assets. So basically you have to blow $1 billion on the experience. I would imagine you try to do something cool like fly to Mars, something like that. Although the older I get, the less I personally want to be in space. I do feel like it's a cool thing to do, like for civilization, and I'd love to watch other people go deep under the sea and out into space and try to find extraterrestrial life and all kinds of fun things like that. But I don't know, the whole being apart from your family forever and not really, living in a glass dome somewhere, that doesn't. At least we're not there yet. Hopefully, we can improve our climate here and save our planet and not have to do that. But intellectually, that's. I always read science fiction stuff and loved Isaac Asimov's Foundation, and I think that'd be fun.
Well, that's a good note, I think, to end on. Garth, I appreciate you doing this so much. You were a good sport, obviously, as always. We threw some curveballs at you, not the least of which was on the technical side. So hopefully that was fun for everyone to see us sweat both for freaking out about this, but also sweat because I am still feeling the residual of that hot sauce quite intensely. But anyway, Garth, I really do appreciate you doing this. I want to, before we sign off though, I did want to thank some people, and I wanted to kind of close out kind of a little commencement address here. But we could not have done this without Full Pull Wines, the doctor's office, and the masonry. They were the food-related businesses that donated supplies and whose owners were sharing their expertise and served as our faculty. Stoop Brewing also partnered with Fast Fashion Brewing to make our signature beer, Craft Casual, which I believe you can still find at various establishments around Seattle. But really, the people that made this thing happen were the volunteers, and there were a lot of volunteers that put in a kind of ungodly amount of hours. MLS Watercolors shared their creative talents and taught their first ever course. Once again, Emily Cummings worked countless hours behind the scenes to help produce and make this event happen. Dave Clark volunteered tons of time helping out and served as the dungeon master of our D&D course. My Nos Audietas partners, Aaron Campbell and Lickett P, once again did a lot of the heavy lifting that wasn't necessarily in front of the camera. 2 old friends of mine from college, Colin Steiner and James Morgan, also did a lot of the behind-the-scenes work. Colin designed our poster while James produced many of the classes and did a ton of the behind-the-scenes work that made this whole thing happen. Finally, Beth Mantle, Susie Rance, Tim Foss, Steve Boat, and Jacob Cristobal have donated time as moderators, hosts, and or behind-the-scenes helpers. As usual, this has been a true team effort and would have been literally impossible if not for the volunteer hours that they all put in. I also owe a huge debt of gratitude to the Sounders and Rain, who helped us find guest students, Brian Spencer, Kellen Rowe, Spencer Ritchie, David Estrada, Wade Weber, Lamar Nagel, Lauren Barnes, Danny Weatherholt, Madison Hammond, and of course, Garth Lagerway. All of them were enthusiastic participants, and they made this feel like an entirely pure and really just kind of fun event from my perspective, at least. Hopefully you share the same. I'll finally close Yacht College by saying thank you to everyone who registered, watched, and especially those who donated. This has been one of the most gratifying projects I've ever contributed to, and I'm blown away by what we accomplished and what you guys allowed to happen. I would urge everyone to continue watching the courses if they missed any of them, and hopefully next year we won't have to be yachting alone. I'm Jeremiah O'Shan, signing off for Yacht College, and hopefully we'll see you in person next year.
Wait, we need Garth to certify our course.
That's right. I forgot, Garth. We wanted to. We had an element for you here. Where do we have? Did we give that to him? Oh yeah. Okay? I gotta find that. Oh no, where was it? Okay, sorry. Oh no, where is it? I cannot find it. Okay, this is some good behind the scenes stuff here. I forgot I had to do this thing that you guys would, so you can actually turn this into your diploma.
Sounds very exciting.
Yes, okay. Garth, as president of soccer, we need to ask you one more thing. All of the YachtCon students watching live and who have taken courses over the past 2 weeks, as well as those watching on demand later, have worked hard to complete the official YachtCon back-to-school curriculum. Can you now certify that they are eligible to graduate from Yacht College?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Without
good.
hesitation.
All right.